Good morning and good morning. Yeah, good morning because it's 1 a.m. over here in Kampala, Uganda. So good morning from Kampala, Uganda, and I wanted to do update number 4, which has to do with Swift data and JavaScript. So Swift data is what I've decided to do for my persistence, local persistence layer. The remote persistence will still be Firebase or Firestore, I think most likely. But then for the local persistence, we shall be using Swift data to keep the different feed links and the folder arrangements that we shall be using in the file in the app. And then also I wanted to give an update on the JavaScript, which is what's going to be used for highlighting the different parts of the different articles. So for the Swift data, it was pretty standard to implement. Wasn't too hard. It was just import Swift data and then do the different setups required, the container and everything, the model container and all the rest, to get the Swift data up and running. So for the Swift data, it's already done and stored, and the feeds will look something like this with a folder. It's just repeated dump data with a folder, and then you can be able to add more feeds and add more folders depending on what you want. And if you want to look at the internal structure, there's a cool app called Core Data Lab. Okay, I think it's by Black Magic or something like that. Beta Magic. It's by Beta Magic. And they can give you this app gives you an insight into your Swift data, so you can see what data has been created, the IDs, the images or the icons or whatever you've been saving and using for Swift data. So it's basically an RSS feed as the main model, and in that feed you have an array of folders, which folders will be used for displaying the different parts of the different parts of the feeds that will be listed. So it will look, like I said, something similar to that. As for the JavaScript, as you know, I told you in the previous video, I don't really know much JavaScript. So it was on to vibe coding for that. Of course, for vibe coding, I simply brought out my Claude Code and Gemini to do this work. And so, of course, I was expecting pure bliss, rainbows, and good work everywhere. That wasn't the case. And mostly I think it was to do with the JavaScript part of the code. This is the JavaScript that needs to be injected into the web view to provide the highlighting. So I just tried with Claude. I'm going to show you what Claude gave me. It was after an hours of prompting and prompting. And then afterwards, I moved to Gemini and tried to do also some prompting. Both didn't give me exactly what I want, but I would say they got me 90% there. So it's just on me either to find a way of prompting more so that this JavaScript is fixed, or moving over to try to fix the JavaScript myself. So if you look at the different apps that were given, this was Claude's, which kind of worked. So essentially, I wrote a small side app just to get this feature only working by itself. So and then I'll join this feature later on in the bigger app. So here, if you just look at what this is exactly what Claude gave. While you can click and highlight, you can click and highlight. Okay, cool. While you can click and highlight, okay, and then the highlight stays, and it's sort of refreshing, and you can see what I've highlighted here is what is then saved. Here it's saved user defaults, which is not going to be the case in the final app. I'll be saving it to Swift Data or to Firebase. But here, as you highlight these can get saved and then will be used later on in the app. But like I said, any sort of load or reload on the page, and all the highlights disappear. My efforts to get the highlights to stay have been very unsuccessful. On the other hand, with Gemini, this was starting with Gemini, it made it even much worse, because now when you do a highlight, okay, it just changes the format of the thing completely. It does, the highlight does remain, okay, but it changes the format of the highlight. You can see any sort of highlight I do, and then the whole format of the HTML is then converted and is no longer the way it was on the original article. Both do save the highlights, as you can see here, the highlights that will be later on saved in the database, but they don't do a good job of reflecting it to the user. So the user doesn't know what it is that he has highlighted. So at the moment, I'm just stuck on this JavaScript issue. So I'm going to talk to a few JavaScript friends of mine, at the same time try to vibe code my way out of this, as JavaScript is not really my strong suit. But I will keep you guys updated. So yeah, those are the two updates, SwiftData and JavaScript.